This is writer, director, and producer Sam Raimi, a man who by all accounts needs no introduction. For over 40 years, he has been giving us classic films that span over multiple genres. Now this man, on the other hand, is Shinichi Fukazawa, someone who I doubt you've ever heard of, let alone seen any of his work. So what could him and Sam Raimi possibly have in common? All the way back in 1981, Sam and his longtime friend Bruce Campbell secured $90,000 to start principal photography on his genre masterpiece, The Evil Dead. While the film itself went on to become quite a cultural hit within the horror world, not all was sunshine and rainbows behind the scenes. The production was plagued with constant setbacks, including getting lost in the woods on the first day of shooting and crew members getting injured. Raimi also loved tormenting his actors. In his own words, he said, "If everyone was in extreme pain and misery, that would translate to a horror." And it seemed he accomplished his goal, even though Bruce Campbell called it, quote, 12 weeks of mirthless exercise and agony. The film went on to make almost $3 million at the worldwide box office. With its success, this little low-budget flick would spawn 2 sequels, a TV show, and inspire more aspiring filmmakers than I could possibly count. And this is where Shinichi comes into the story. Inspired by these films, in 1995, he would embark on an almost 20-year-long process of making his own low-budget horror feature. A film that has been dubbed by fans as the Japanese Evil Dead. And that's exactly what we're going to be discussing today. I'm Nightmare Movies, and today I want to introduce you to one of the most batshit insane films that I have ever seen, and with a mouthful of a title: Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell. Before we start though, I do want to say that tickets for a Baroque Film Festival are officially live. It's a one-day event that me and Sam Hell will be hosting in Los Angeles, California on November 22nd. It is an 18-year-old and up event, and IDs are going to be checked at the door. I'll also be moderating a Q&A with the cast and crew of the new American Guinea Pig film, so come hang out. And if you want to see some wild horror films, get your tickets now. I'll leave a link in the comments down below. This movie has a fascinating story, so before we jump into the film itself, I want to just let you all know what went into the creation of it. All the way back in 1995, Shinichi and his 2 supporting actors began shooting this feature film at Shinichi's father's house that was going to be demolished. And as the title of the video says, this was practically a one-man show. Shinichi served as writer, director, producer, editor, special effects artist, and of course, the leading actor. He stated that he loved the Evil Dead films and that this movie was a tribute to them. But his main reason for actually making it was because, quote, "I wanted to be like Bruce Campbell's Ash from The Evil Dead, and I wanted to kick zombies around like him. I happened to be working out then and I was training myself, so I figured I should make use of that too." As you're going to see, this movie has a lot of charm to it, just like Evil Dead, and just like in the production of Evil Dead, this film was also plagued with setbacks and problems. Apparently, while shooting, several rolls of film went missing, and the main shooting location, Shinichi's father's house, had an insect infestation. The film was also constantly being reshot all the way up until 2009, and it wasn't until 2010 where the film would have a final cut. The film was then, of course, self-released by Shinichi on about 100 burned DVDs in 2012, then would luckily see an official Japanese release in 2014, followed by a release in the UK in 2017, and eventually being released in the US in 2022. And now that you really understand the history of this film, it's time for you all to experience over 20 years of hard work. The film starts by introducing us to Shinichi's father's house, a location we're going to become very familiar with over the next 62 minutes. Inside, we get an electric start to the film. A woman is trying to murder her boyfriend. The 2 struggle for control of a knife, and she tells him that he can't leave her for another woman. He belongs to her. She eventually gains the upper hand, raises the knife, and just as she's about to swing it, the boyfriend grabs her by the wrist and stabs her through the heart. She falls to the ground, bleeding profusely out of her chest, almost comically so. As she lies on the ground, her necklace falls off, and for some reason, all of the blood pooling on the ground gets absorbed into it, though the boyfriend doesn't really seem to notice. Now, naturally, the boyfriend does what we all would probably do after killing his girlfriend. He takes a shovel and an axe, breaks apart the floorboards, and just tosses tosses her body in. But just as he does, her necklace, for some reason once again attached to her neck, falls onto the ground. And in case you wondered, this is probably important to the plot. And if you needed more evidence, once he throws the necklace into the hole, his girlfriend suddenly springs back to life, telling him, "You belong to me," followed up by one of the more rational reactions to this kind of situation, hitting his girlfriend in the head with a shovel. Quite the introduction, but now we get to fast forward 30 years into the future and meet our titular bloody muscle bodybuilder. This is Shinji, the writer, director, lead actor, special effects artist, and everything else involved with this film. And we as the audience get the pleasure of being introduced to him through close-ups of just about every inch of his body. I mean, the movie's called Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder, and hell, I'm not sure what I exactly expected. But then we're rudely interrupted by someone giving him a phone call, an old flame, and an important side character, Mika. She calls asking about an old photograph of a haunted house that he showed her. And you can probably guess where this is going. The next little bit of this is basic exposition that doesn't really matter other than Shinji telling Mika that he works out. And I'll say right now this is important to the plot, but something slightly more important at this moment is that Mika is a writer, specifically working on an article about haunted locations. Shinji hands over the photo, and you guessed it, it's the house from the intro. But there's something weird going on. One of the windows is quite literally filled with the face of a ghost, clear as day. Shinji also tells us that the house belonged to his father that he says lived in it before he was married. And just before we start off on our insane adventure, there's one more photo that Shinji shares. A picture of his father in front of the same house with the woman he murdered standing next to him. And now things start to get wild. Mika, Shinji, and Mika's psychic friend, Mizuguchi, all drive up to Shinji's father's house one weekend. And yes, her psychic friend is introduced without any warning. He just is in the car. But anyway, upon arriving, Mizuguchi already senses something off about the house. He tells the two that they're being watched, having evil thoughts sent in their direction. There's a strange foreboding feeling that this part of the movie gives off. We get these shots of the crew investigating the house's exterior with an eerie track adding to the atmosphere. When they do eventually make it inside, Mizuguchi finds these unusual drawings of a woman pinned to the bedroom walls, and most importantly, the tools used to steal away Shinji's father's little secret. The next little while gives us a good layout of the house, consisting of a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and of course, a basement. However, according to the resident psychic, each of these rooms is filled with an ominous presence, one that bears a terrible grudge. So naturally, he summons said presence. Lights flicker, the tension rises, Shinji puts hairspray in his hair, all crescendoing to this moment. After getting knocked unconscious by a clock and literally summoning a spirit, it's decided that the best course of action would be for Mizuguchi to investigate the home alone. And I won't disagree with it because I know what comes next. Absolute insanity. Mizuguchi eventually encounters the full body spirit of the woman who died here. And before he can even begin to find out what's going on, the woman stabs him through the chest, takes over his body, and things go from zero to bat crazy. Mika and Shinji decide that it's the perfect time to go check up on their psychic friend. However, once they enter the bedroom, they find him lying on the ground. As Shinji approaches, their friend jumps off the ground begging them to leave, while he's still alive. But that won't last for much longer, because immediately after, Mizuguchi seizes up and the all-important necklace from earlier slides from his mouth and digs inside of his eyeball, killing him and marking the point of no return for Mika and Shinji. Now the next 10 minutes is where we get some of that classic Evil Dead effects work. I can't show a lot of it because of YouTube's aversion to fictional violence, but I can give you an idea of what happens. Shinji is successful in locking the demon in the basement because of course he is, it's an Evil Dead tribute, when suddenly the TV flickers on. And who exactly is going to be dumping exposition on us? None other than the spirit of Shinji's dad, of course. He explains what we already know, that he killed his girlfriend and now her angry spirit is after them. But she's using their psychic friend's power to keep them locked in the house. And the only way for them to escape, they have to hack his body into pieces. And the weapon that Shinji needs to use is down in the basement. basement. So, with a plan and no other options, the two make their way to the basement door, when without any warning, the psychic drops through the ceiling and another fight begins. He grabs a hold of Mika's neck, strangling her in front of Shinji, but he's not going to let that happen. With the help of both the shovel and the axe from earlier, Shinji chops away a Mizuguchi until all that's left is a pile of dismembered body parts lying on the ground. Just like his father said, Shinji hacked him into pieces, but for some reason, all of their exits are still locked. The woman or the man or the spirit or whatever it is laughs at them, telling them that there is no escape. But there was one key part of the plan that Shinji forgot about. The weapon he needs to use is in the basement. And what is it that the two of them find down there? Shinji comes up to finish the job, but it seems that some of the body parts have gone missing. What happens next I can't show much of, but it's one of the craziest fights I've ever witnessed. Different parts of the body have connected in an almost John Carpenter's The Thing kind of way, and Shinji and Mika have to fight off each separate piece of it. But no matter how hard they fight, it just keeps coming back at them. And Mika is eventually bitten and knocked unconscious by the demon, and Shinji has run out of options. He has no idea what to do. Slowly, the woman's corpse is being rebuilt from the viscera of his friend, and Mika has now become possessed. Shinji gets knocked down into the basement and finds himself not only at the lowest point physically, but mentally as well. But that's where he has a breakthrough. The weapon he needed wasn't a shovel or an axe or a shotgun. The weapon was something he had this whole time: his muscles. I told you it was important to the plot. The ending of this film I want to leave mostly as a surprise for your entertainment, but to give you a little summary, Shinji utilizes both his incredible strength and the weights that were conveniently placed in the basement and pummels the demon into a bloody pulp. It's a spectacle for sure, nothing but wildly creative practical effects that are a little too graphic to be ad-friendly. And of course, to save Mika from being possessed, he quite literally sucks the demon out of her neck. The two have defeated the evil and are set free to live happily ever after. And that is bloody muscle bodybuilder in hell. With this film and the last one I covered, Sledgehammer, I've really grown an appreciation for these types of low-budget films. And I know I'm not the only one. There's a reason this film is so beloved and dubbed the Japanese Evil Dead. Its practical effects, its slapstick tone, it's a great time, and at only 62 minutes, it's an easy watch. Especially since a good 30 of those minutes are dedicated to some extremely creative fight scenes and practical effects. It's not even a tribute to Evil Dead in my mind. So much is taken from the franchise, it's almost a certified reboot, and I honestly loved every second of it. If that or Dead Alive or any other over-the-top splatter film is something you enjoy, I beg you to give this one a watch. I have nothing but respect for Shinichi and his over 20 years of dedication to give everyone access to this film. It oozes with passion, it's a lot of fun, and like I said, worth giving a shot. And with all that being said, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm Nightmare Movies, and I'll see you all next time.